Hi, welcome to this module. In this module, we are going to discuss the different antivirus technologies as they are implementing on Huawei's firewalls. But before we understand and before we take a look at how Huawei's firewall implements the various antivirus technologies, first we have to understand what a virus is, what are the different types of viruses, and what are different techniques that are used for getting rid of those viruses or implementing an antivirus strategy or antivirus implementation. So let's first look at the definition of a virus, or the basic concept of what a virus is. So the basic concept of viruses, as most of you might already be knowing, that the virus is a piece of malicious code which is used to infect computers or servers, so that the servers and the computers are unable to provide the services which they are supposed to provide. The viruses can infect the hosts, and they can exhaust the host resources, occupy network bandwidth, and they can control the hosts and make them do things which probably they should not be doing, or in worst case scenario, they can even corrupt the host hardware as well. And if we look at the antivirus mechanism or antivirus programs, the purpose of any antivirus software is to make sure that the viruses or any malicious code, they are not able to damage the services, or they are not able to disrupt the services or damage the software or the hardware which they are trying to infect. So it's kind of a action and reaction kind of thing, where a virus is trying to perform certain actions and the antivirus is reacting, or the antivirus is making sure that the viruses are not able to perform those malicious actions. How these viruses infect the computers? There are two ways, or there are the two types of computers, either the end hosts or the computers, users, or the PCs or the servers. They can both be infected. For example, if the users, they download something from the internet, and if that downloaded file contains virus, so it's a virus file, then these computers would be infected and they will not be able to perform or provide the normal services. Similarly, if a user sitting in the internet is trying to upload a file to our servers, even then the users could upload an infected file or could upload a virus to our servers, and hence our servers would not be able to provide the services that they are supposed to provide. So mostly the viruses can come from the internet, but that's not the only way the viruses can infect a computer. The infection can actually travel within the intranet as well. However, one of the major sources is the files that are being downloaded from the internet, or the files that are being uploaded to the servers, to our servers in our data centers from the internet. So these are the two major sources of viruses and how they infect the computers or the hosts in our intranet. Let's take a look at how these viruses spread to our infrastructure, how they infect the infrastructure. One of the most common ways, one of the most common means of viruses entering our infrastructure is through the emails. Whenever we receive emails, those emails might contain some infected files or might contain some viruses, and because we click on those attachments or we open those files containing viruses can infect our computers, and from there they can spread within our infrastructure. So we can say that emails are one of the major sources or major carriers of viruses from one location to the other, from one PC or from the internet to our intranet, to our PCs or to our servers. Then another source could be the network sharing. Whenever there is a virus infected computer, and if the virus is programmed or if the virus has been architected or created in a way to exploit the network sharing, they could look for the default sharings like given here, and they could check for the weak passwords or check for the vulnerabilities, and if they find any vulnerability or any weakness, they could infect other computers as well. Similarly, another way of viruses spreading in our infrastructure could be through P2P sharing, peer-to-peer sharing. Once again, in peer-to-peer sharing, The users could download something which they thought is going to perform some other function. However, the users could be tricked, and that file which they have downloaded, that could actually be a virus infected file, and hence their PCs, their computers, and ultimately the entire intranet could be infected with those viruses. The next thing that is responsible or through which viruses spread, that's important thing to look after, is the system vulnerabilities. Almost all the systems that are running in the network, they might be having one or other kind of vulnerabilities, which means that they have a weakness which can be exploited at any given time. So the hackers or those who create and those who distribute viruses, they are always on the lookout for those vulnerabilities. And the moment they find a vulnerability in the system, they try to exploit that vulnerability and access the system and spread viruses or infect the systems with viruses. These are some of the common vulnerabilities in different systems that are running in most of the infrastructures. For example, IIS, Microsoft Internet Information Server, or the print daemon, or the remote procedure calls, they all have certain vulnerabilities, and we need to make sure that we have effective means in place to stop those or to block those vulnerabilities so that they cannot be exploited. Similarly, adware and drayware, which sometimes users install themselves for certain purposes, they might also be responsible for spreading viruses either on our PCs or from our PCs to other PCs. And then there are a few minor ways of viruses spreading within our infrastructure. This could be by the users who run a program just to see what that program would do, or just to see whether the virus can infect their PC or not. They could do it mistakenly. So the viruses could bind to normal software. Our computers could be infected by accessing the web or through the internet.